Welcome back. We are starting a new chapter. The chapter name is known as Akshara Brahma Yoga, and some textbooks is called Taraka Brahma Yoga. So I think we already discussed this point many times. These chapters' names were not originally given by Krishna or Vyasa. Obviously, Krishna cannot think about a chapter name while he is teaching to Arjuna, and even for Vyasa, he didn't give any name. So later commentators, when they reviewed, they gave the name. So that's why you see sometimes multiple names are there. Sometimes you may not agree with even the name. So every chapter has its own name, and the name of this chapter is Akshara Brahma Yoga, and some textbooks call it as Taraka Brahma Yoga. So let's get started. So today what we are doing is we are going to do an introduction of this chapter. Before we start, what we wanted to understand or recap is the spiritual roadmap of the Bhagavad Gita. We need to keep this in mind always, otherwise we are going to lose the chain of thought. So when you look at the Bhagavad Gita, there are three major topics. First topic is Karma Yoga, second topic is Upasana Yoga, and the third topic is Jnana Yoga. We talked about this in our last class also. Why we need to study Bhagavad Gita? Because it is laying out a roadmap for making or taking me to the highest spiritual goal, not at the cost of a life that is rejected here. I'm sorry if you are not talking, please go on mute. Thank you. Okay, so coming back, the roadmap of Bhagavad Gita or the vision of the Bhagavad Gita is leading me to my full potential or to the ultimate goal of my life, but at the very same time, not asking me to leave this world, right? Sometimes you may say that for gaining this goal, you need to leave so many things out. Suppose there is an exam. The student might be studying a lot. He cannot watch a movie. He will be cutting off himself from the life. But Gita is not asking us to cut off from the life. It is giving me a lifestyle, or it is laying out a proper path in front of me so that I will reach my final destination. At the very same time, I am not running away from my life. This is unique to Bhagavad Gita, and that's the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita tells me, in this lifestyle, I have three obstacles. The first obstacle is the impurity of my mind. So it prescribes a practice to cultivate the mental purity not by doing any extra thing. It is asking me to continue to my day-to-day work. Remember, it is asking me to continue my day-to-day work. Let's assume that I'm a M&A professional, or I'm a software engineer, or I'm a lawyer. It is making my daily profession as a means to purify myself. Look at the beauty of it. It is not asking you to go to a Rishikesh and sit there in an ashram and leave your family. Not at all. It is giving me a lifestyle pretty much aligned with my day-to-day life and meaning a slight adjustment in my day-to-day activity so that this is going to purify myself. And what is the second advantage of this Karma Yoga? It is not just purifying myself. Second thing is that what? It allows me to operate efficiently. So if I'm an engineer, I can do my job better. At the very same time, that work is going to purify me. This is unique to Bhagavad Gita, and this is the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is what is called Karma Yoga. It is originally in the Upanishad. It was presented in the Upanishad from a Vedic ritual perspective. Krishna took that idea and he transformed that into every aspect of the life. And this is why the context of the Gita is not in the bank, meaning the bank of a Ganga. It is not in the serene ashram atmosphere, but it is in the worst possible scenario of life. So if you can take that practice, if you can do that practice in that battlefield, I can do that anywhere. So meaning a Wall Street professional or a doctor or an engineer, this is equally applicable in a place in Africa. It is equally applicable in New York City. That's it. So this is Karma Yoga. But is the mental purity good enough for the highest goal? No, you may have a pure mind, but if that mind is always turbulent, what is going to happen? So that is why the second practice is given, Upasana Yoga. So achieving mental stability and calmness through meditation and prayers. All the meditation will come in under this. So this is Chitta Sthiti, whereas the Karma Yoga is Chitta Shuddhi. And finally, once I have a pure and a controlled, a stable mind, I can go and understand the truth about myself. That is where Jnana Yoga comes. So in the first 6th chapter, the predominant topic was Karma Yoga, even though 6th chapter, the whole meditation was introduced. And now you see that there is a shift from Karma Yoga to Upasana Yoga. Chapter 6, it started. Chapter 7, the God was introduced. And what was the solution? What was one takeaway from Chapter 7? You connect with me and work in the world. And Upasana is a means to get connect with me. The best Upasana is Saguna Brahma Upasana. You're meditating upon the form of Ishvara, and that is what is highlighted in this chapter. So keep this idea, the roadmap, the spiritual roadmap laid out in the Bhagavad Gita in the mind. Because without this, we will get confused. If you want to connect the dots and if you wanted to find a sequence from verse 1 to the verse 700, this is needed. And if I'm not able to make a connection, please understand that there is something wrong in my understanding. Please. Gita is not isolated piece of advices. If you take, say, Lord Buddha's, with all due respect, it is not anybody's fault. If you take Dhammapada, what is Dhammapada? Dhammapada is a collection of talks Buddha gave here, there, everywhere, and his disciple just collected it and wrote it down. So you will not find the sequence there. Take Bible, fantastic scripture. But what happens? What Luke collected, he compiled. What Matthew collected, he compiled. But this is the same teaching. But the difference here is, this is properly sequenced. And you won't find the sequencing, you won't find the systematization in Upanishad. Upanishad is just freely flowing inspiration of rishis. But the beauty of the Gita is, it is well structured. The whole Gita is organized in this structure. And if this structure is not known, the Gita becomes a mystery. So that's why before every chapter, I try to highlight this topic. Okay, so this is nothing new to you. So we can continue. So now when you look at Chapter 8, so Chapter 7, we built some foundation. So Chapter 7, what was the key topic we introduced? It is the nature and role of Ishvara. If you remember, we talked about the two aspects of Ishvara, right? One is Para-Prakriti, which is formless, all-pervading, without any destruction. Then there is Apara-Prakriti, which is a manifestation of that Ishvara, which may come and go, but the existence of that Apara-Prakriti is completely provided by the Para-Prakriti, which is the absolute form. So this, what the purpose of the 7th chapter was to make us understand Ishvara. Because if you want to meditate upon Ishvara, you need to understand. If you want to love somebody, you need to understand. You cannot say that go and love XYZ. Why you love your child? Because you know your child. It is that you know that it is my child, and you know it. That is why you love him. If otherwise you could have, meaning you would have loved every children in the world. Theoretically, we would like to, but that feeling will not come. The feeling comes only when you understand. So, God need more than believing God. You need to understand God. Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, we all emphasize this point. Okay. So Ishvara is introduced, and then Krishna said, how do you want to live in this world? The only way, when I say only way, don't think that this is sectarian or like a fanatic view. Krishna said that don't call me Krishna or else you will go to hell. Now, that's not the teaching, right? You pray God in any form, that is fine. If you want to pray in the form of Jesus, that is fine. But you need to connect to that higher intelligent order of the universe. Without that, if you try to get your permanent happiness and contentment from the world outside, that will not happen because they are also impermanent. So remember the example in the commentary, Shankaracharya said, right? When you jump into a river, get hold of an anchor. Then you can enjoy the bath. So hold on to Ishvara and work in the world outside. This is another sutra of the Bhagavad Gita. Brilliant sutra. Hold on to Ishvara, work in the world. Hold on to Ishvara, work in the world. Then you can face the world, any challenge. So how do you get connected to Ishvara? Krishna introduced that topic, Ishvara Upasana, in the 7th chapter. I'm trying to link the 7th chapter to 8th chapter, right? So Ishvara Upasana is introduced. So the ideal life is what? You recognize Ishvara. 7th chapter he said, right? There are 2 types of people. One is Asuras. Who are Asuras? The one who doesn't recognize Ishvara. For them, their goal is material objects alone. Such people, Dushkritinaha, right? So those people, Asuram Bhavyam Agataha. So those people don't even recognize Ishvara. So first thing is you need to recognize Ishvara. And then what you need? You need to get connected with that Ishvara. Initially you may get connected as what? Artha Bhakta, Artharthi Bharta, and then you turn into Jitnyasu, finally you turn into Jnani. That's okay. So you need to recognize Ishvara, you need to get connected with Ishvara. Then Upasana is the means which facilitates that deeper connection for more fulfilling and purposeful life. This is not blind belief. Please. This Upasana is not mechanically chanting Vishnu Sahasranama. Right? So this is real Upasana by understanding and connecting with Ishvara. So then by practicing this Ishvara Upasana, we can get above our ego and we can live a more purposeful life. And Chapter 8 take this idea and build on top of that. So Ishvara Upasana, which was introduced in Chapter 7, it built the foundation for Chapter 8. Understand? Like we need to do this every chapter. Whenever we switch from one chapter to the other, we need to understand what exactly is the theme that got elaborated. Okay, so this is the next point. So let's continue. Next is, so now let's connect the Chapter 7 and 8 to be very specific connection. So on a high level, we said it is Ishvara Upasana, but let's go to the specifics. So Chapter 7 at the end introduced a few technical terms. Remember I said I will explain that in Chapter 8 and we did that. Chapter 29, verse 29 and 30. So Krishna introduced not randomly, but planned 7 technical terms. In fact, 6 technical terms, and he made a statement. If a student is genuine, when the teacher uses a language or a word that doesn't make any sense, what the student should do? Should ask. Or thou shalt believe, because Krishna said, I should believe. That's not the attitude of Gita, right? Tadvithi pranipatena, right? What is the next lens? Pariprashnena. You have to ask. So that freedom is given in Gita and encourages that questioning, and that freedom and that approach is what makes Gita a unique scripture. No other scripture will give you this benefit. Right? So this is what? So this verse 29 and 30 introduced a few technical terms which didn't make any sense to Arjuna, or at least Arjuna got confused. When you say Arjuna, Gita is not to Arjuna alone. Gita is for us. So Krishna is teaching to us. What is the simile given in the Gita Dhyana? It is said, Sarvopanishato Gavo Doktha Gopala Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta. It's like the milk. Yes, the calf has definitely the share, and it is because of the calf, the cow induced the milk, meaning the cow produced the milk or given the milk, but that milk is used by a lot of other people. Like that, Arjuna became a cause or a nimitta. Arjuna nimitta matrena, Shankaracharya tells, right? It is given, but that teaching is applicable to all the people. So, we all get confused. That is why this Gita style is that whenever such things happens, Arjuna will ask a question, Krishna will answer. And if Arjuna don't ask question, in the commentary, Shankaracharya will ask question by himself and he will give the answer. So, you can see that. Okay, so let's move on. So, yeah, so these technical terms got introduced, and that is the link mainly. So now let's see what exactly is the questions. So you can see in the screen. So you can see Jara Narana Mokshaya. That verse you can see Brahma Tat Vidu. Then he tells Adhyatmam Karma. These were the three technical terms. Arjuna got a little bit confused because he thought it is just karma means only action. He didn't understood the larger implication, how that karma is going to get connected with the Brahman and Adhyatma. What is the connection? So karma he might be knowing, but he don't understand why Brahman and Adhyatma and karma, how they are connected. No idea. So this is the three terms that confused Arjuna. Tat Brahma. Tat means that Brahman. That. Then Adhyatma. I'm not going to answer that. That is Krishna's answer is going to come. But this is the question. And then karma. So this is on verse 29, three technical terms. Let's go to verse 30. So verse 30, another three technical term. On top of it, what one statement also confused. Atibhudam, that is the first technical term. Athidevam, second technical term. Third, Athiyajnam, that is the third technical term. And then he said, Prayana Kalecha, meaning he said, remember me at the time of your departure. That is the most confusing thing. How is it possible? Even while normal time, I cannot remember you. So how can I remember you at the time of my departure, which is impossible. So this is the 7 questions. And so simple. This 7 question is the scope of each chapter. Clear? So this is how the 7th chapter and each chapter is connected. Ishvara Upasana is introduced, and then Ishvara Upasana is introduced as a means for what? Jara Marana Mokshaya. To get freedom from old age and death. The most fearful thing. The number one fear is death. Fear of death for anybody. And second thing is fear of sickness. Of course, they say public speaking. But along with that, fear of death is number one for sure. So if I need to cross that, you need to follow Ishvara Upasana. And along with the Ishvara Upasana, he introduced these technical terms which confused Arjuna. When I say confused Arjuna, it confuses all the seekers. So that is why this chapter is introduced. Okay. So then, now let's see what is the overview of this chapter. Okay. So this chapter, it is the second Shatka of the Gita, right? The first 6 chapter was focusing on the Tompada, Second 6 was Statpada. So 7th chapter we saw the whole direction got changed. Up until then it was Atma, Atma, Atma. Then we started introducing Brahman. He started introducing meaning Paraprakriti. The Brahman, the word is not used. Now Brahman is also introduced. So that Ishvara or the Tatpada. This is known as Akshara Brahma and Taraka Brahma Yoga. Akshara Brahma Yoga, the name came because Krishna's teaching starts on the 3rd verse with Akshara Brahma. So since he started the word Akshara Brahma, some commentator or somebody thought this is the most apt name for the chapter. They put the name. That's all. Taraka Brahma Yoga is another name. Taraka Brahma means Taraka mantra is Omkara mantra. Om. And this chapter, the Upasana is based on the Om. Om meditation is the path, Upasana given in this chapter. So because this is Upasana Yoga and Taraka mantra is used for the meditation, that is why another name is given what? Taraka Brahma Yoga. These are the 2 names, popular names for this chapter. Somebody may ask, Taraka Nama is Rama Nama. Yes, Rama Nama is also known as Taraka Nama. Omkara is also known as Taraka Nama. Okay. So that's another point. Let's continue. Now let's see the key topics of this chapter or the roadmap or the layout of this chapter. So verse 1 to 2 is Arjuna's 7 questions. I showed you from where those questions came. These questions came from chapter 7, verse 29 and 30. Verse 3 and 4 is Krishna's answer to 1 to 6. So 6 questions he answers in 2 verses because it's already introduced. Second chapter onwards, he already talked about the nature of Atma, which is he say that these 2 are same, but brilliant answers. You should see how to summarize content from this. These 6 questions are answered in 2 verses brilliantly and outstanding definitions. 2 words, 2 words, 2 words. We are going to see that. And then from verse 5 to 25, he is going to answer. He is going to dedicate for that last question. What is that? Praya, meaning how can you remember Ishvara at the time of death? That was the 7th question. And the whole chapter from it's 5 to 28. 5 to 28 is his answer. It's typo. So 5 to 14, he talks about Ishvara Upasana. What is the Upasana? That is discussed. And then from 15 to 22, he talks about the 2 goals people follow. One people follow only the material goal. The other people follow the spiritual goal. What is the difference? He do a little bit of comparison. And then verse 23 to 27, he talk about the 2 gatis. Interesting. I'm going to talk about that. Once a person die, right? This chapter tells that your Sukshma Sharira, loosely translated as soul, not correctly translated, loosely translated as soul, can take 2 paths. What are all those 2 paths? It is known as Krishna Gati and Shukla Gati. So what exactly they are, he will explain. And finally, verse 28, he glorifies the Upasana. So verse 1 and 2, Arjuna's 7 questions. 3 and 4, Krishna's answer to question number 1 to 6. 5 to 28, Krishna's answer on that last topic. And that last topic it's a deviation from the conventional flow of the Gita, because Gita, meaning the reason is that is needed for Upasana, and that Upasana, how it leads to something called Krama Mukti. I'm going to talk about that. So that is a subject that comes only in this chapter. You could see this in the Katha Upanishad also. We talked about this a little bit when we went to Katha Upanishad. But this is, and one more point we wanted to highlight here. This idea of Krama Mukti, unlike most of the other topics in the Gita, it's a matter of belief. Right? So there is a difference, because most of Karma Yoga, whether it works, you don't need to go to heaven. You don't need to die to practice it. I can do that here and now. The benefit of Upasana Yoga, the chitta sthiti, you can feel it here itself. Even the enlightenment, Jeevan Mukti, technically you can experience here. It's not a post-mortem reward, but this is a post-mortem reward. And what does that mean? It's a matter of faith. I never experienced it, or I haven't seen anybody who experienced it. Jeevan Mukti, you can even say that, okay, there are people who lived in the world as Jeevan Muktas, but this is a matter of belief. And what was Shankaracharya's definition on believing? We will see that. See, if you want to believe something, and his definition of belief itself is beautiful. His definition of belief is something assumed to be true, which is subjected to correction upon verification. Brilliant definition. Something.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah, sure. So, something you assume to be true, which is subjected to correction upon verification. Subjected to correction upon verification. And the problem with these things is what? Where exactly you verify? When can you verify it? Only after death. That's why it's a post-mortem reward. Now, he tells such beliefs, it's up to us whether to take or not. He said, if there are certain things which is matter of belief, what do? His advice to us is, look at that. And if that is going to help you in any means, follow it. So, for Krama Mukti, what is the sadhana Krishna is telling? Is it to deny the world? Or is it to go and do looting? No, he is prescribing meditation. So, anyway, it is going to benefit me. So, there is nothing wrong in taking it. See, this is the style of our masters. They are not asking you to blindly believe anything. And they are openly telling that this is a matter of faith and it is up to us. But following this instruction will not create any problem for us. So therefore, I can take it. Right? So that's very important. Let's continue. Okay, so now Upasana. Let's try to understand that Upasana a little bit more. This is the theme of this chapter. So Ishvara Upasana, as I said earlier, is the key focus of this chapter 8. So Upasana means it comes from two words, Upa and Asana. Upa means close, closest. Asana means sit. So you're sitting closer to Ishvara. So your mind, you're filling with Ishvara. The whole Upanishad also is similar word. What is it? U, Upa, Ni, Sat. Sat means your own true nature, Atma. Ni means definite. Upa means very close. So you're getting definitely closer to your own self. A body of knowledge that makes you closer to your own self is Upanishad. Upasana means that practices which makes you sit closer to Ishvara, which makes you closer to the vicinity of Ishvara is Upasana. So, this is very important to understand that. A lot of people, what they do. So, see, I'm from Kerala, so I know Ekadashi in Kerala, what they do. They don't do, meaning the normal, regular food is rice. So, they will skip the rice. That's it. Instead, what they do? They do 15 chapati. That is not Upasana. Swami Chinmayananda used to joke, Shivaratri, he won't eat, right? He will say like, I won't eat dinner. And Swamiji used to say, this fellow might have had a late lunch, which is sufficient for 5 days. So, that is not Upasana. Upasana means you are preparing your body and mind to get closer to that Ishvara. So, look at the definition. That definition It's a broad definition. So many types of upasanas are there. And you can pick up the right upasana based on your mental preference. I cannot say that all the people sitting here, all the 21 people sitting here should follow one upasana. No, wrong. Because what makes my mind connected to might be different from what your mind is attracted to. I might be following Lord Shiva, you might be following Ayyappa. It's fine. This is very important to understand. So one size doesn't fit all. So when you try to fit one God and make that God is the absolute form to be worshipped, that is where this issue starts. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa gives a beautiful example. What is that? It is going to a shop where there is only one, meaning the shirt size is only one. What do you do? Tom Vivekananda brilliantly presented that in the World's Parliament of Religion. He said, Tom, Dick and Harry has to. One is extra large, one is medium, the other one is small. Everybody has to adjust with that medium-sized shirt. That is not Upasana. Upasana is different. You can choose the form of the Upasana. You can choose the way you worship. Some people need to do puja. Some people they japa. Some people do meditation. All that is fine. Right? And when a true Christian kneels and pray to Jesus or Mother Mary, that is Upasana. There is nothing wrong in that. But when you say that only Jesus is the the object of Upasana, that's a problem. You see the difference. This is what we need to very clearly understand. So this is the point, Upasana. And our personal inclination leads to connect with a particular form. And this chapter introduces Upasana with Omkara Upasana. Krishna is not giving any particular form. You can see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna won't give a particular God's name. Even he didn't call Vishnu. Not at all. He only talks Ishvara. That is, you can see in Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Sutra, God is only given as formless, and here the Upasana is given as Omkara Upasana. So that's beautiful. A lot of people think that Bhagavad Gita is particularly Vaishnavite. Not at all. You can see never ever any particular form is prescribed. He said any form is fine. But that also is misinterpreted. When Krishna said worship me, people say that worship as Krishna. So what to do? So Omkara Upasana, and then this Upasana has the potential, leads one more point, because there is a material benefit and there is a spiritual benefit for Upasana. The main benefit is Chitta Shuddhi, but there can be a Karma Phala also, Upasana. If the Upasana is so powerful, if the Upasana is of the highest quality, you get the best Karma Phala in the world. What is that Karma Phala? A ticket to Brahmaloka. Again, this is a matter of faith. So this is what is the Krama Mukti. So the benefit of Upasana is, first benefit is Chitta, or main benefit is Chitta Sthiti, or the mental stability. And the secondary benefit is, if the Upasana is to that highest level, it can give a visa to Brahmaloka, or a entry to Brahmaloka, where you will be taught by not like ordinary teachers, but extraordinary teachers, Brahmaji. And that is what is Krama Mukti. So this is understanding Upasana, the key mental stability, the key to mental stability and a connection with Ishvara. This is the one-liner. Okay, so let's go. And there are two types of liberation. This chapter talks about that, right? So this is very important to understand. We will understand when we go to the chapter more, but at least on a high level, we can understand. So enlightenment means what? It's nothing fancy or mystical. It is knowing that I am consciousness. I am not the body-mind. I have a body-mind, but my real nature is consciousness. It is like in a dream, I'm realizing that this real nature of me is the waker. That's all. And that can happen in two different ways. First is Jeevan Mukti. So that happens when you're alive. So when you're alive, liberation in the current life. And there is no more rebirth afterwards. Because you're not identified with your Sukshma Sharira. So there is no rebirth. So that is liberation path number one. And second type of liberation mentioned in the scriptures is called Krama Mukti. Krama Mukti means you haven't you didn't get the self-realization at the time of your death. What happens? But your Upasana was so powerful, you got into a certain level, then what happened? Because of that continued practice of Ishvara Upasana, your mind will be fully filled with Ishvara at the time of death. So we need to understand this, because it's not that you're trying to remember Ishvara at this point of time. Your mind is always filled with Ishvara. So at the time of death also it will be there. So at that time what happens? Your Sukshma Sharira will take a different route. Instead of going through the typical reincarnation, it goes to Brahmaloka and you will be taught by Brahmaji, the creator, and you will get liberation there, and there is no more rebirth. So the usual route after death is the usual karmic life cycle. That is skipped and you will be sent to a different path. This is the part I was talking earlier. It's a matter of belief. That's it. So these are the two types. I just wanted to introduce the term so that you won't get confused, right? Think about what we are talking is the key subject matter, meaning touched in the chapter. So we talked about Upasana. We talked about these two different types of Mukti. Let's see the next topic. So three possibilities for any Jiva. Look at this diagram. That's very simple. So the first and foremost or most advised thing is, while you are alive, you get enlightenment. So that is option number one, or the most preferred option. No more rebirth afterwards. Fantastic. When he dies, what happens? The body will die, but there is no rebirth. Second option is what? When you die, the Upasana was very strong. So the soul or the subtle body goes to Brahmaloka. It will, meaning you will be taught by Brahmaji, and finally what happens? You get enlightenment. No more birth afterwards. The third option is what? My Upasana was not that powerful, or I was an Asuram Bhava. So what happens? Depending upon the role, the law of karma my life will be governed by the law of karma. Remember, we had this long discussion. So at this point of time, what happened? This life has acquired a set of karma called Kriyamana karma or Agami karma. That Agami karma will go to the storehouse or the repository karma called as Sanchita karma. Then out of that, some algorithm will pick up a subset, and depending upon that, my prarabdha will be determined, and that is going to be my next life. The only exception is what? When my current life is dominated with a particular activity, for example, spiritual practice. The 6th chapter uses a term, remember? Yoga prashtaha. Arjuna's point what? I did a lot of yoga, but still I didn't realize what is that going to be waste? Krishna said the next life karma will be skewed. It is not randomly picked. This will be skewed, if you use the language of statistics. So this diagram shows the three possibility of a jiva. So it could be Jeevan Mukti, it could be Krama Mukti, or it could be the transmigration. Clear? Okay. So next thing is, now, at the time of death, two paths, right? That is the last topic mentioned in this chapter. One is called, when you die, if you are a Jeevan Mukta, what happens? The subtle body will be dismantled. That's it. So out of that three options I said, one is already ruled out. So the two pending option, one is, if you are in the Krama Mukti, if your Upasana was so strong, what happens? The subtle body will take a path called Shukla Marga. Shukla Marga, white path. It's Just two different options. That's it. Otherwise, and that takes you to the Brahmaloka. There you study from Brahmaji, get an enlightenment. Or if it is normal people like us, it will definitely go to the Krishna Marga. Krishna Marga means black path. That's it. Krishna means black. That's all, right? Then what happens? Death, birth, birth, death cycle. This is the two different path after the death. So that's it. That's the introduction. Because now we can have a quick recap. The recap is, we will just see the layout. So once again, this chapter is mainly focused on Upasana. So there were verse 1 to 2 is Arjuna's 7 questions. And then verse 3 to 4 is Krishna's answers for question number 1 to 6. And then what happens? Verse 5 to 28 is Krishna's answer on question 7. In that he will talk about Ishvara Upasana. He'll talk about the two goals. One is worldly goal and the other one is God or the spiritual goal. Worldly goal means what? If you try to connect the dots, which path he will go to? He will be in the Krishna Marga, and that is where he will. And he will be in that transmigration bucket. This is not to bucket or categorize people, but he's just telling, like, if you take this, this is the path. That's it. And then he talks a little bit about these two paths. And finally, he concludes by glorifying the Upasana a little bit, because he's going to add that in the next chapter. Because the last verse is always like that. So that's it. That's the introduction to this chapter. This is a usual Gita is full logical and which you can connect, but this Krama Mukti is a matter of faith. Just wanted to let you know.